Shoe of the year. Shoe of the year. This might be the shoe of the year for me. I don't care that it came out in 2024. Now, the GOAT of running shoe reviews said that it was his favorite race day shoe of 2024. And since then, so many companies, including Puma themselves, have come out with shoes that they say are faster, lighter, and more responsive. But does the PUMA Deviate Nitro Elite 3 still hold up as a race day shoe that you might want to consider towards the end of 2025 and even looking forward to spring of 2026? Hi everybody, and welcome to another video. My name is Matt and this is What Matters to Matt. And yes, on today's video we are talking all about the PUMA Deviate Nitro Elite 3. Now, as usual, we are going to go down through the upper, the midsole, and the outsole, and ultimately I'm going to let you know whether this shoe was worth my hard-earned cash. To get that disclosure out of the way right off the bat, since we're talking about my hard-earned cash, I did purchase the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 with my own money. My thoughts and my opinion are definitely my own. And I know that you're all anxiously waiting to hear exactly what I have to say about the PUMA Deviate Nitro Elite 3, but first, we're going to look at a few of the specs. Just a reminder, even though this shoe's been out so long. Now, the price of this shoe at full price, and I'm expecting you're going to be able to catch this on sales fairly soon, but the price of this shoe is $285 Canadian or $230 in the US. The weight is 7.4 ounces or 209 grams in US men's size 9. The stack height is 40 millimeters in the heel and 32 millimeters in the forefoot. The drop of the shoe is 8 millimeters. The midsole is the PUMA Nitro Elite foam. That's an aliphatic TPU. We'll get into more on that later. And the plate is their power plate. That is a carbon plate that runs throughout the entire length of the shoe. And the outsole is that PumaGrip rubber that we always hear so much about. Okay, so the upper of the Elite 3. Now, I am a big fan of this upper, but there are some quirks and some things that I had to work around to get this to work properly for me. I will say that it does run a little bit narrow, and that is true for a lot of race day shoes, but that is also true for a lot of Puma shoes. If you've ever run in Puma before, they do run a little bit narrow through the midfoot. Now, the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 does taper quite a bit here towards the toe box, the big toe. There is a little bit of an aggressive taper, and that might irritate some people. That might be something you want to watch out for. It wasn't a problem for me. This is a US men's size 13. I wear a US men's size 13. I had almost a full thumb's width here at the end of the shoe. I like to leave myself quite a bit of space, especially in a shoe that I think I'm going to take for a long distance, which meant that that taper didn't really affect me too much, but I think it might bother some people. So just something to think about. Now, when it comes to the lacing system, a pretty standard lacing system, nothing to write home about. It just tends to work. The tongue on this shoe is race day thin, except they have put some padding right up here, and I might need some B-roll, or you can just trust me that there is some padding right up here, up near where you cinch the laces down, and it does a really good job at protecting against any sort of lace bite. Never had a problem with that at all. And it's also long enough. Some of the shoes these days, one of my favorite shoes that I'm currently running in, that I'll do a long-term review on here shortly, the tongues are running a little bit short to get that runner's knot in, but not a problem with this at all. Now, there is no gusset in this, but it doesn't travel around because, again, Puma did something that made a lot of sense. They've got two little loops on either side of the tongue that the laces tie into. They're on either side here, and it really keeps the tongue from moving around. Now, you don't have a whole lot of padding around back here in the heel, just what you'd expect from a race day shoe, and it is not very stiff at all back here in the heel. So pretty stripped back upper, works really well, is really light. You've got that Puma power tape that there's no way, I don't think, you're gonna really be able to see that on the screen, but trust me, it's there. It's just where it adds a little bit of structure throughout that upper, and they're still able to keep it super breathable. Now, the one major problem that I have with the upper is I got some irritation back here in the heel. When I ran that 10K race and when I went on my long runs, I ended up with blisters every single time. And I was wearing very high, tall socks, so it wasn't that the socks were low and no-show socks where you were getting a lot of rubbing back here. And I don't get a lot of heel lift, so I wasn't expecting it where you have a fairly soft heel and no heel lift, but for whatever reason, I get some irritation. In fact, the FOD runner, Andy, good friend of mine, he actually said a similar thing, that he was getting some irritation back here, but he loved the shoe so much, he was just thinking about taping up his heel. And for me, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I have a race coming up in December. There is a really good chance that this is going to be the shoe. That's for a couple of different reasons that we'll talk about later. But I'm just going to tape up that heel. And if I have another long run in the shoe, I'm just going to tape up that heel. It seems like a good enough trade-off for me to be able to run in this. But if I do have a complaint about that upper, it's back here and me getting this weird irritation that I don't get in a lot of shoes. Now, when it comes to that midsole foam, Puma in the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 is actually using an ATPU, an aliphatic TPU material in this, and it feels really, really nice. It's not super soft, super squishy like some of the other Puma foams that you get there, where eventually on those longer runs, sometimes I feel like I get a little bit lost in the foam and I don't get that good return. With this, there seems to be a lot of resilience and it bounces back pretty quickly. It's not super firm, it's not super soft. For me, this is the Goldilocks of the super shoe midsole material, that aliphatic TPU. Now, I have also heard that durability is excellent in this. I haven't tested that yet. I've probably got about 100 kilometers in this shoe so far, so I can't give you any long-term durability notes. But if you stick around, if you're not subscribed, subscribe to my channel. I will certainly do that when we get a few hundred miles into the shoe, because I know we are going to do that. I am letting the cat out of the bag way too much on how much I like this shoe, which is meant to come at the end of the video. But that midsole seems to be working out really, really well. It works for me whether I'm trying to run a fast 5K. It works for me whether I'm trying to run a marathon and I want all that protection and I don't want to lose any of that energy return throughout the run. Don't seem to have any issues whatsoever. Not a whole lot more I can say there, other than I really, really like this midsole. Now, that carbon plate is pretty stiff, so if you're somebody who has some sensitivity around carbon plates, again, something you just want to be aware of. But for me, that midsole is exactly what I'm looking for in a race day marathon shoe. The Outsole PumaGrip. What can I say? You probably know if you've been in shoes for a while, if you've run in any Puma shoes before. In fact, one of the things that I'm most excited about this and the race that I have coming up in December, it's a half marathon that is in Eastern US. It's in Maine in December. I have no idea what the weather's going to be. It could be absolutely anything. It could be raining cats and dogs. And this shoe just gives me the confidence that I'm going to be able to get some good grip. And I can't say that for a lot of race day shoes. So Puma has done something incredible again with that PumaGrip on the outsole of the shoe. And somehow they're able to do that and not have that rubber, which has pretty good coverage overall. You do see some of that foam. I get that. They need to strip back some of that weight, but you got pretty good coverage overall. And it doesn't seem to negatively affect how the shoe runs. Sometimes you get shoes that have really good rubber on the bottom, really good grip, that kind of deadens the sensation and really takes some of that liveliness out of the shoe. Puma, however they're doing it, keep doing what you're doing. That outsole rubber is absolutely incredible and works really, really well in this shoe. And one last thing I'll say that actually is a pretty big positive for me is that the shoe runs pretty narrow through the heel, the midfoot, and the forefoot. I know I said it was a narrow fit, but also on the bottom of the shoe, you can see that it runs fairly narrow. Now, what that does is it actually feels like the shoe turns over really quickly. One of the things that a lot of shoe companies have been doing over the last couple of years as they've increased the foam is trying to find ways to keep the stability in the shoe or add some stability to the shoe, and they've done that by widening out the shoes. That's happened in a few of my favorites over the last couple of years, that they've gotten just a little bit too wide to the point where they feel a little bit clunky and they've lost some of that turnover that I like in some of my faster shoes. This has kept that turnover, has kept it nice and narrow. Okay, so I know I've been talking mostly praises about this shoe, but there are a couple of things that I mentioned, and there are 3 things that I want to bring up towards the end of this video that you might want to consider that might have you thinking that this might not be the right shoe for you. The first one is that it does run that pretty narrow, that aggressive taper up here in the toes, and that's going to rub some people the wrong way. If you think that's going to be a problem, this might be something you steer clear of. Also back here in the heel, a problem that I actually had that I feel I can fix just through taping up my Achilles is that I did get some irritation, and some other people have had that irritation. And the third one is something where I said I actually liked, but I think some people, if you are a pure heel striker, or even if you're a heel midfoot striker and you're running those longer races and you want something that's going to be a little bit more stable, the fact that this is so narrow back here and narrow in the midfoot It does mean that for some folks, they're going to find that just a little bit too wobbly, especially later on in the race. Even if you are that midfoot striker that gets a little bit sloppy towards the end and ends up back here on your heel, it might be something that you just want to be aware of before you actually pick this up. It's going to feel really good for most people at those faster paces, and this is a great shoe for 5K, 10K, where so many of us are going to be running midfoot to forefoot. But even for those longer races, where you might be running a little bit more back on your heel towards the end of that, it's something to pay attention to. It is not the most stable shoe in the world because of just how narrow it is. I like it because it does add to that quick turnover, but for some, that might just be a little bit too unstable. So that's it, guys. That is the end of the video, and I don't take back anything that I said towards the first of it where I talked about this being the shoe of the year. I know it's from 2024, but I got it in 2025 and it has served me really, really well. I plan on racing in this shoe in December as long as it holds up through the next couple of long runs. If you want to see that race or see what I post about that race, you're going to have to subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you are a current longtime subscriber from the bottom of my midsole, thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Matt, and this has been What Matters to Matt, and ultimately, what matters to me most is my family. I'll see you guys in the next video.